Praise the Lord and welcome. Today we're diving right into one of the most dynamic, complex, and frankly shocking stories found in the ancient texts, Genesis chapter 38. We're talking about a really powerful narrative covering lineage, survival, ancient customs, and a family that is pushed to the absolute brink. Let's jump into this explainer together and see what we can uncover.
So, how did a disguised widow manage to secure her family's entire lineage? Honestly, it sounds exactly like the plot of a Hollywood thriller, right? But at its core, this is a deeply human story. It really forces us to ask ourselves, what would we do if our very survival was on the line and the people who were supposed to protect us just turned their backs?
All right, let's start by setting the stage with Section 1, Judah's family tragedies.
So things move really fast here. Judah steps away from his brothers, marries the daughter of a Canaanite man named Shua, and they quickly have 3 sons in rapid succession, Er, Onan, and Shelah. He's building his family, he's securing his future. To him, everything is going exactly according to plan.
But then, boom, disaster strikes. And actually, it strikes twice. Judah gets a wife for his first son, Her name is Tamar. But the text tells us was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord put him to death. So suddenly, Tamar is a widow. Naturally, Judah tells his second son, Onan, to step up and marry her. But Onan completely refuses to give his brother an heir. The text actually says he wasted his semen on the ground just to avoid giving offspring to his brother's name. Because of this wickedness, the Lord puts Onan to death as well. In just the blink of an eye, Judah has lost 2 sons, and Tamar has lost 2 husbands. Which brings us to the ancient custom driving all this in Section 2, the brother-in-law duty.
Back in Genesis 38:8, Judah commands Onan to perform the duty of a brother-in-law. Now you might be wondering, what exactly is that? Well, it's the strict obligation of a surviving brother to marry his deceased brother's widow in order to raise up offspring in his brother's name. Think of it as an ancient social safety net. You see, without a husband or a son in that era, a woman like Tamar was completely 100% vulnerable. She had no property rights, she had no income, and literally no future. So, Onan wasn't just being stubborn here, he was actively robbing Tamar of her very right to survive.
And that leads us to Judah's reaction. After losing 2 sons, Judah is secretly terrified. He tells Tamar, "Remain a widow in your father's house till Shelah my son grows up." But here's the catch. He has absolutely no intention of giving his last boy, Shelah, to her. He's terrified that Shelah is going to die just like his brothers did. So he essentially benches her indefinitely. He sends her away to her father's house, effectively trapping her in this stagnant state of widowhood with zero hope for a family of her own.
So what does she do? Let's dive into Section 3, Tamar's desperation and deception.
A lot of time passes. Eventually, Judah's wife dies. And after his period of mourning, he goes up to Timnah with his friend for a sheep shearing festival. Well, Tamar gets word of this trip. She looks around, she sees that Shelah has grown up, and yet she still hasn't been given to him in marriage. Judah completely broke his promise. Realizing she's been played, Tamar formulates a desperate, totally daring plan.
She undergoes a complete transformation. She sheds those widow's garments, which were basically the uniform of her trapped status, and she wraps herself in a veil. Then, she goes and sits right at the entrance to Enaim, directly on Judah's path. It's like she's going completely undercover. She knows exactly who is coming down that road. Judah sees her, totally fails to recognize her because her face is covered, and just assumes she's a roadside prostitute.
That sets up our climax in Section 4, the pledge and the pregnancy.
So Judah propositions her, but he doesn't actually have any payment on him. He promises to send a young goat from his flock later. But Tamar is incredibly smart. She says, "If you give me a pledge until you send it." And she demands 3 highly specific items: his signet, his cord, and his staff. Think of this in simple everyday terms. It's exactly like a bartender asking to hold onto your driver's license and your credit card to keep a tab open. These items were uniquely Judah's. They were his ancient, undeniable ID card. Once she secures them, they sleep together and she conceives. After that, Tamar slips away, puts her widow's clothes right back on, and goes back to waiting as if nothing happened. Meanwhile, Judah, trying to make good on his debt, sends his friend Hira with the goat to get his ID back. But this is fascinating. If you look at the source text, Hira goes around the town asking for a cult prostitute, a sacred woman. The local men are totally confused. They tell him no cult prostitute has been there at all.
So Hira has to return empty-handed. And Judah's reaction here? It's incredibly telling.
He says, "Let her keep the things as her own, or we shall be laughed at." Think about that. He cares way more about his public reputation than retrieving his own personal seal. He abandons the search just to avoid a little public embarrassment, completely unknowingly leaving his undeniable proof right in the hands of Tamar.
Which takes us to the incredible confrontation in Section 5, a righteous revelation. Fast forward 3 months. Tamar's secret pregnancy becomes visibly undeniable. Word gets back to Judah. "Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has been immoral. She's pregnant." Judah's reaction is swift and it is brutal. "Bring her out and let her be burned," he declares. The sheer hypocrisy of this moment is just staggering. The very man who thought absolutely nothing of hiring a roadside prostitute is now ready to execute his own daughter-in-law for immorality, completely blind to his own guilt. But as she's being brought out to be executed, Tamar doesn't scream, she doesn't beg for her life, she simply sends Judah his own items, the signet, the cord, and the staff, with a very simple message: "By the man to whom these belong, I am pregnant." It is literally the ultimate ancient mic drop. Judah looks at his own ID, he is caught red-handed, and to his credit, in a moment of real-world accountability, he publicly admits his fault. He says, "She is more righteous than I, since I did not give her to my son Shelah." He finally recognizes that her deception was a desperate act to secure the justice and survival that he had denied her. And this incredible story resolves in Section 6, the birth of twins. When the time for her labor finally comes, she is having twins. The text reveals the absolute chaos of this delivery. One baby puts his hand out, the midwife quickly ties a scarlet thread on it to mark the firstborn, but then he pulls his hand right back in. Zerah had the scarlet thread, but his brother literally pushes past him and comes out first. The midwife exclaims, "What a breach you have made for yourself." And so he's named Perez, which literally means a breach. This totally unexpected twist at the very end ensures that Perez becomes the heir, finally fulfilling the need for the lineage to continue. So we end with this final provocative thought for you. When survival requires deception, who truly upholds the law of the lineage? This ancient narrative gives us a wildly compelling personal story, but it also leaves us with 3 highly actionable steps for our daily application. Number 1, keep your promises, unlike Judah did for so long. Number 2, have the courage to acknowledge your own faults when you're called out. And number 3, look past surface appearances to recognize those who are struggling right around you. What an absolutely incredible text to unpack together. Thank you so much for joining me today for this explainer. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe so we can keep exploring these amazing ancient texts together.